A simple woman named Sophia King walked into the upscale restaurant with her head held high, her simple attire consisting of a well-worn cardigan and faded jeans. To most people, she probably looked like she didn't belong there. But as she walked through the bustling kitchen, the atmosphere in the room shifted. The chef, Robert, a man with years of culinary experience and a notoriously big ego, looked at her with a skeptical smirk. "Can you cook, miss? Or are you just here to watch?" he asked, his voice dripping with condescension. Sophia smiled softly, unaffected by his words. She was used to being underestimated. "I'm just here to help," she said quietly, not wanting to make a scene. Robert, amused by her lack of response, decided to make a joke at her expense. "Well, then why don't you try cooking something for fun? Let's see if you can handle it," he said, gesturing to a corner of the kitchen. His colleagues chuckled, knowing well that he loved mocking those who weren't part of his elite culinary world. They all assumed Sophia would fumble her way through, just as many others had before her. The customers in the dining area, too, watched the scene unfold with mild amusement. Sophia, however, didn't flinch. She walked over to the counter where the ingredients were laid out in front of her, still calm and composed. The room buzzed with the noise of pots and pans clanging, orders being shouted, and the subtle murmur of judgment from the chefs. "She won't last long," one of them whispered to another. But Sophia, now completely immersed in her task, didn't hear their words. She began chopping vegetables with precise, practiced motions, as though she had done this 1,000 times before. Her hands moved effortlessly, creating beautiful cuts that looked as if they belonged in a high-end cooking show. As she began to prepare the dish, the initial mocking whispers in the kitchen began to die down. One by one, the staff started to notice her focus, her quiet confidence. They had expected a disaster, but instead, they were watching something else unfold, a display of skill that none of them had anticipated. Time seemed to slow as she moved through each step, seasoning the dish with an expertise that was undeniable. The noise from the kitchen softened as the meal began to take shape. The temperature of the kitchen suddenly seemed to rise, not from the heat of the stove, but from the intensity of the moment. Sophia wasn't just cooking, she was making a statement. As the dish neared completion, Robert glanced over at her, his smile gone, replaced by a look of disbelief. She had managed to do what he thought was impossible. She had created a flawless dish, a dish that would have taken any top chef hours to perfect. The moment Sophia plated her creation, the room fell silent. No one could speak. The dish she had prepared wasn't just good, it was extraordinary. The restaurant, once filled with the noise of clattering dishes and conversation, now stood still, as if the entire place was holding its breath. Robert stared at the plate, speechless, unable to comprehend how she had done it. Sophia placed the dish on the counter and stepped back, her eyes calm and steady. She looked at Robert, who still couldn't bring himself to say a word. "I guess it wasn't just for fun," she said softly, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. The rest of the kitchen staff, now fully aware of the gravity of the situation, remained frozen in place. The customers, once oblivious to the chaos unfolding behind the scenes, had begun to notice the shift in energy. They watched with a mix of confusion and awe. What had started as a joke had turned into something much bigger, something no one could ignore. The silence in the room was deafening, and it wasn't just the staff who were taken aback. The realization that Sophia, the woman they had all written off, had just outdone them all, left everyone speechless. As Sophia stepped back from the counter, a heavy silence filled the room. The kitchen staff, who had been skeptical just moments before, stood frozen in place, their eyes locked on the dish she had prepared. Chef Robert, who had thought this would be a simple joke, was no longer smiling. His usual confident posture had given way to something unfamiliar, uncertainty. The customers in the dining area, unaware of the drama unfolding behind the kitchen doors, began to sense the shift in the atmosphere. The low hum of conversation had quieted, replaced by the occasional clink of silverware. Sophia didn't look for approval. She had never been the type. Instead, she walked calmly to the back of the kitchen and began cleaning her station, wiping down the counters as if nothing had happened. The sounds of the kitchen resumed, but this time, the energy was different. It wasn't the usual noise of rushing and frantic activity. It was a quieter, more deliberate atmosphere. Robert, still standing by the counter, seemed unable to move. He glanced down at the dish before him, his mind racing. How had she done it? He had given her the simplest ingredients, expecting a mess, but she had turned it into something far beyond his expectations. The dish didn't just taste good, it was flawless. His gaze shifted to the other chefs, who were slowly beginning to recover from their shock. One of them, a young sous chef named Mark, approached Sophia, his face still pale. I have to say, that was incredible, he said, his voice soft with disbelief. Sophia looked at him, offering a small smile. Thank you, she replied simply, her tone as calm as ever. Robert, who had been watching from the sidelines, finally found his voice. Sophia, he began, his words tinged with an unfamiliar humility. I owe you an apology. The words were difficult for him to say, but there was no denying the truth now. Sophia didn't answer immediately. She didn't need to. Her actions had already spoken louder than any apology ever could. Instead, she picked up her coat from the hook near the door, preparing to leave. The kitchen staff had regained their composure, but the atmosphere remained heavy with the realization that they had misjudged her. The restaurant, once buzzing with the usual noise, had fallen into an odd silence, each person reflecting on what had just happened. As Sophia exited through the kitchen door, Robert turned to his team. This is a lesson, he said, his voice steady now but carrying a weight of respect. Never judge someone based on what they look like or where they come from. Sophia just proved that. The kitchen staff nodded, the reality of the moment sinking in. Sophia had come in with nothing but a quiet confidence, and in the span of a few minutes, she had turned their world upside down. They had all underestimated her, and now they knew better. As she stepped into the street, the cool evening air welcomed her. She didn't need to prove anything to anyone. She had already proven everything she needed to in that kitchen. Sophia King, the quiet woman they had all dismissed, had shown them that true talent doesn't need to be loud or flashy. It speaks for itself. Sophia stepped outside into the brisk evening air, the city's lights reflecting off the wet pavement. She walked slowly, her thoughts a mix of satisfaction and quiet reflection. It wasn't about proving herself to anyone. It never had been. She had known her abilities all along, but seeing the reactions from the kitchen staff, particularly Robert, had been an unexpected moment of validation. As she rounded the corner of the building, her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was a message from her sister, Claire. Asterisk. Hey, just heard from Robert. What happened today? Everyone is talking about you. Asterisk. Sophia smiled slightly as she typed back a simple reply. Asterisk. It's nothing. Just did what I do best. Asterisk. She knew her sister would understand, but the words still felt strange to her. She wasn't one for attention. She had always preferred to work quietly, in the background, where no one could question her. The world around her seemed to move at a faster pace than she liked. After a few moments, her phone buzzed again. It was a call this time, and her heart skipped a beat when she saw the caller ID. It was Robert. Asterisk. Hello? Asterisk. She answered, her voice calm, though there was a flutter of curiosity in her chest. Sophia, it's Robert. His voice came through, hesitant at first. Asterisk. I just wanted to apologize again. What you did today was incredible. You've got a talent that we all missed, and I'm sorry for underestimating you. Asterisk. Sophia paused, not sure how to respond. She had expected a bit of recognition, but hearing it from Robert, especially after everything that had happened, felt different. I appreciate that, Robert, she said softly. Asterisk. But I've always known what I'm capable of. I didn't need anyone else's approval. Asterisk. There was a slight pause on the other end. She could hear him breathing, perhaps searching for words. Well, I think we've all learned a valuable lesson today, Robert said finally. Asterisk. You didn't just show us your skills, you showed us that there's more to a person than meets the eye. From now on, I won't make the mistake of judging anyone by their appearance again. You've earned more than just respect. You've earned a place here. If you ever decide you want to work in the kitchen with us, just let me know. Asterisk. The offer took Sophia by surprise. She had never considered joining the kitchen staff permanently. It wasn't the recognition or the prestige that had driven her, it was the love for cooking. But the idea of working alongside professionals who now saw her as an equal made her think. Thank you, Robert, she said after a moment, her voice steady. Asterisk. I'll keep that in mind. Asterisk. She hung up the phone and stood there for a moment, letting the weight of the conversation sink in. She wasn't sure what the future held, but she knew one thing for certain. She had earned the respect she had always deserved, and it felt right. With a deep breath, Sophia continued walking, the city's lights guiding her path. She wasn't looking for a grand moment of victory. She didn't need to be seen by everyone. All she needed was to continue doing what she loved, in her own quiet way. And for now, that was enough. Sophia woke up to the soft hum of the city outside her apartment window, the early morning light spilling through the blinds. It had been a few days since the incident at the restaurant, but the events still lingered in her mind. She had always been someone who preferred to stay in the background, but now, after what had happened, things felt different. People were noticing her, and it made her uncomfortable. She had never wanted fame or recognition. All she ever wanted was to cook. It was the one place where she could be herself, without the judgment, without the pressure of living up to anyone else's expectations. But as she sat at her small kitchen table, sipping her coffee, her phone buzzed again. It was Robert. Sophia, I hope you're doing well. Just wanted to check in and see if you've thought about our offer. I know it's a big decision, but we'd love to have you back in the kitchen. Let me know when you have some time to talk. She stared at the message for a moment, her fingers lightly tapping the side of the cup. She wasn't sure what to do. The idea of working in the kitchen again, especially after everything that had happened, was both tempting and daunting. She hadn't planned on this. She didn't need the validation. She had proved her point. But there was something about the respect she had earned from Robert and the others that made her pause. Was it worth considering? She set the phone down and pushed the thought aside. She needed to focus on what mattered most, her own path. It wasn't about pleasing anyone else. She had her own rhythm, her own way of doing things. The next few days passed in a blur of work, quiet moments, and a lingering sense of curiosity. Sophia spent her time experimenting with new recipes, refining old ones, and revisiting the things she loved about cooking. The kitchen felt like home, and she couldn't deny how much she missed it. Then, one evening, she received another message from Robert. This time, it was more direct. Sophia, we're hosting an event next week. I know it's short notice, but we'd love for you to come and show us what you can do. No pressure, just a chance to work together and see what we can create. She took a deep breath and thought for a moment. The offer was tempting, and she knew this might be the opportunity to show everyone that she wasn't just some quiet woman. They could see what she was capable of, and this time, it would be on her terms. The next week, Sophia arrived at the restaurant, her heart beating faster than she expected. It wasn't the first time she had been there, but this time, it felt different. She wasn't just some bystander. She was here to work, to show them what she could do. As she stepped into the kitchen, the familiar sense of fresh herbs, sizzling food, and hot ovens filled the air. Robert was already there, waiting with a welcoming smile. Sophia, I'm glad you came. The team is excited to work with you. He gestured to the group of chefs gathered around the prep station, their eyes eager but nervous. Sophia nodded quietly, her presence commanding attention in a way she never anticipated. She wasn't the center of attention by choice, but she knew what she had to do. The night went by in a blur of chopping, stirring, and plating. Sophia moved gracefully through the kitchen, her every action purposeful and precise. Robert watched from the sidelines, impressed by the way she worked, the way she took charge without saying a word. The event went off without a hitch, and as the last dish was served, Robert couldn't hide his admiration. You did more than I expected, Sophia, he said, his voice filled with genuine respect. She looked at him, a small smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. It's just cooking, she replied softly, but in her eyes, there was a quiet confidence that spoke volumes. For Sophia, it wasn't about proving anything to anyone anymore. She had already done that. She had nothing left to prove. The respect she had earned was all that mattered now, and that, to her, was enough. Sophia's decision to return to the kitchen had been a quiet one. She had proven herself, and while the respect from the team had been gratifying, she didn't seek accolades. Her love for cooking had always been personal, a way to connect with herself and the world around her without the need for recognition. The event had been a turning point, not just for Robert or the others who had underestimated her, but for herself. She had done what she loved, and that was enough. A few weeks had passed since the event, and life had returned to its normal rhythm. Sophia had been working in her small apartment kitchen, creating new dishes, experimenting with flavors, and continuing her journey without the rush of recognition. But one afternoon, she received an unexpected call. It was from Claire. Sophia, I've been hearing your name everywhere. The restaurant's getting a lot of buzz about you. People are talking. Sophia raised an eyebrow. She had always kept a low profile, never seeking fame. Really? She replied, unsure of what to make of it. Yeah, Claire continued. The kitchen staff is saying you're the real deal, and Robert's been bragging about your work. They're saying you're the future of the restaurant scene here. Sophia felt a twinge of discomfort. This wasn't why she did it. She hadn't needed recognition, but hearing the words from her sister made her pause. Was it possible that she had been part of something bigger than she had realized? She shook the thought away. It wasn't about the praise. It never had been. That evening, Robert called again. This time, his tone was different, more urgent. Sophia, there's a new project coming up. We're opening a new restaurant, and I can't think of anyone better than you to be a part of it. I know you're not looking for this, but I need you to at least consider it. This is a big opportunity. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his words. She had never considered working in the spotlight, never sought out a career in the high-end culinary world. She loved to cook, to create, but the pressure of running a restaurant, of being constantly in the public eye, felt foreign to her. I need time to think about it, she replied, her voice steady, though uncertainty lingered in her chest. The next few days were filled with contemplation. Sophia knew she couldn't ignore the opportunity, but she didn't want to rush into something that would take her away from what she truly loved. Cooking had always been about expression, not about the fame that often came with it. Yet, this could be the chance to make a real impact, to share her love for food on a larger scale. It was a decision that weighed heavily on her, and she knew it wasn't one she could make quickly. On a rainy afternoon, as she stood in her apartment kitchen preparing a dish she had been perfecting for weeks, Sophia found clarity. She had always done things her own way, without the need for validation or recognition. But this time, the opportunity felt right, not because of the fame it might bring, but because of the potential to create something meaningful. She picked up the phone and called Robert. I've thought about it, she said when he answered. I'm in. The decision felt right, but it wasn't the fame she was chasing. It was the chance to shape something new, something that stayed true to her roots while reaching more people. Robert's excitement on the other end of the line was palpable. You won't regret this, Sophia, he said. This is going to be something special. As she hung up the phone, Sophia smiled to herself. She had chosen to step into the light, not for the spotlight itself, but for the opportunity to create and share the thing she loved most, food. And this time, she would do it on her own terms. Sophia stood in the middle of the new restaurant's kitchen, a soft hum of activity around her. The space was bigger than anything she had worked in before, sleek and modern, with stainless steel countertops that gleamed under the bright overhead lights. The scent of fresh herbs and roasting vegetables filled the air, and for a moment, she felt a sense of disbelief. This was it, the opportunity she had chosen to step into. It was real now. She looked around at the team, all eyes on her, waiting for her direction. They had been excited, even impressed by her ability to lead during the initial prep, but now, there was a sense of expectation. Robert had been right when he said this was going to be something special. As she began to organize the ingredients in front of her, she felt a surge of purpose. This wasn't about showing off or proving herself anymore. It was about creating something genuine, something that felt true to her, and sharing that with others. All right, she said, her voice calm but steady. Let's make this work. The staff nodded, each person falling into their rhythm as she guided them through the first dish. Sophia worked with precision, moving between the various stations, offering advice, correcting small mistakes, and encouraging those who needed it. She didn't need to raise her voice or demand attention. It was in the way she moved, the way she saw the kitchen as a space for collaboration, not competition. As the first round of dishes began to come together, she allowed herself a small smile. This was what she had always wanted, to work with people who respected her abilities and shared the same passion for food. As the night went on, Sophia found herself in the flow of it all, the hours passing in what felt like mere moments. The kitchen was busy, but it wasn't frantic. There was a rhythm, a smoothness to the way things were moving. By the end of the evening, they had served their first group of customers, enthusiastic, impressed, and eager to return. Robert came by her station, a wide grin on his face. "I knew you were the right choice, Sophia," he said. This place, it's going to be amazing with you at the helm. She nodded, her eyes meeting his for just a moment before she returned to the next task. The compliment was appreciated, but it wasn't why she was here. She wasn't here for recognition, for the spotlight. She was here because, in this kitchen, she had found her place. She had found a team that saw her for what she was, someone who loved to cook, someone who could create magic with a few simple ingredients, someone who could make a difference. That night, as she finally closed the door to the kitchen and left for the evening, Sophia felt a deep sense of peace. She hadn't been looking for fame, and she didn't need it. What mattered most was the joy she felt in what she was doing. It was the quiet satisfaction of knowing she was exactly where she was meant to be. Sophia sat quietly in her apartment, the kitchen light dimmed to a soft glow as she reviewed her notes for the upcoming week. The restaurant was doing well, better than she had anticipated, and each day brought new challenges. But for once, she didn't feel overwhelmed. It was the calm that followed when everything fell into place, when the team worked together in harmony, and the customers were satisfied. The phone buzzed on the counter, interrupting her thoughts. She glanced at the screen. It was Robert. "Sophia, I wanted to talk to you about something important," the message read. Let me know when you're free." She sighed softly, setting the notes down. Robert had always been direct, and there was a sense of urgency in his tone that piqued her curiosity. She tapped out a quick reply. "I'm free now. What's up?" A few moments passed before Robert's response came through. "I've been thinking. The restaurant is ready for the next step. We're planning a big event in a few weeks, and I'd like you to help me take it to the next level. You've got the talent, and I think you're ready for more responsibility." Sophia felt a knot form in her stomach. She had known this was coming. There was no doubt in her mind that Robert had been grooming her for a leadership role from the start, but she hadn't expected it so soon. She had been content working in the kitchen, quietly leading her team, finding joy in the work itself. Taking on more responsibility meant more exposure, more eyes on her, and that was never what she wanted. Yet, she couldn't deny the pull of the opportunity. "I'll need some time to think about it," she replied, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. "I understand," Robert responded quickly. Take all the time you need. But I think this could be the next step for you. Let me know what you decide." Sophia stared at the message for a moment before setting her phone down. She didn't want the limelight. She didn't want the pressure of running a high-profile event, but she couldn't ignore the feeling that she had earned it. She had always been content in the background, but now, the chance to lead, to make an even bigger impact on the culinary world, was in her grasp. The next few days passed in a haze of indecision. Sophia spent her time in the kitchen, focusing on the dishes, the team, the rhythm that she had come to love. But the offer from Robert kept creeping into her thoughts. It wasn't about the prestige or the recognition. It was about creating something memorable, something that reflected her passion for food and the artistry that went into each dish. Finally, after several sleepless nights, Sophia made her decision. She wasn't going to shy away from the opportunity. She had proven herself in the kitchen, and now it was time to step up. She picked up her phone and dialed Robert's number. "I'm in," she said when he answered. Let's do it." There was a pause on the other end of the line before Robert's voice came back, full of excitement. "You won't regret this, Sophia. This is just the beginning." Sophia smiled, a sense of resolve washing over her. She wasn't afraid of what was to come. She was ready. This was her time to shine, not for the spotlight, but for the chance to create something extraordinary, something that would leave a lasting mark on everyone who experienced it. Sophia stood at the front of the new restaurant, her hands on the counter as she looked out over the space that had become her second home. The event was just a few hours away, and she felt the familiar flutter of excitement mixed with nerves. Everything had to be perfect. It wasn't just about cooking anymore. This event was her opportunity to show the world who she was, what she was capable of. Robert had trusted her with the responsibility, and now it was time to deliver. The staff moved around the kitchen in a coordinated chaos, each person focused on their task. Sophia had prepared them well, and they worked with confidence, their movements smooth and precise. She took a deep breath, letting the energy of the team settle into her. They were ready. As the doors opened and the first wave of guests entered, she felt the weight of the moment. The guests were some of the most influential food critics in the city, along with a few celebrities, and the pressure was immense. But as the first dish was served, the tension in the air seemed to melt away. The first course, a delicate lobster bisque, was received with appreciative murmurs, and that was all the confirmation Sophia needed. The rest of the night flowed smoothly, with each course being met with enthusiasm and praise. Sophia's heart swelled with pride as she moved through the restaurant, checking on the dishes, watching as the guests savored every bite. Robert came by during the main course, his face lit up with a wide smile. "I told you this would be a success," he said, clapping her on the shoulder. Asterisk, "You've done it, Sophia. This is incredible." Asterisk, she nodded, her eyes gleaming with a quiet satisfaction. It wasn't about the praise for her. It was about the team, the work, the food. The night continued, each dish better than the last. By the time dessert was served, the restaurant was buzzing with excitement. Sophia watched as the final course, a rich chocolate soufflé, was served, the guests reacting with delight. As the last guest left, the restaurant was filled with an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. Sophia stood at the entrance, watching as the last plates were cleared, the hum of the kitchen slowly fading into silence. She took a moment to let it all sink in. This night wasn't just about showcasing her skills. It was about proving to herself that she could do this, that she could handle the responsibility, and more importantly, that she could lead with grace. Robert came over, his voice full of admiration. Asterisk, "You've done it, Sophia. You've shown everyone what you're capable of." Asterisk, she looked at him, a small smile on her face. "It was never about proving anything," she said softly. Asterisk, "It was just about doing what I love." Asterisk, he smiled back, nodding. Asterisk, "Well, you've made a lasting impact tonight. I couldn't be prouder." Asterisk, Sophia watched him walk away, the weight of the night finally lifting from her shoulders. It had been a success, yes, but more than that, it had been a defining moment. She wasn't just a quiet woman who cooked for fun anymore. She was a chef, a leader, someone who had earned her place in the world. And she knew, deep down, that this was only the beginning. Sophia walked into the restaurant the next morning, her thoughts still filled with the success of last night's event. She had expected a sense of relief, but what she felt was something deeper, an almost overwhelming sense of purpose. As she entered the kitchen, the staff was already at work, prepping for the day's service. Robert stood at the far end, talking to a few of the chefs, and when he saw her, he smiled. Asterisk, "Morning, Sophia. You did it." The event was a huge success. Asterisk, she nodded, returning the smile, but the words didn't feel like they carried the weight they once did. She had already moved past the event. What mattered now was what came next. "Thank you, Robert," she said, walking over to him. Asterisk, "But that was just one night. We have to keep moving forward." Asterisk, Robert's smile widened, and he chuckled. Asterisk, "I know you. Always focused on what's next. But you have to admit, last night was something special." Asterisk, Sophia didn't disagree. It had been special, but she couldn't allow herself to linger in the success. There was more to accomplish, more to prove, not to anyone else, but to herself. She had shown the world what she could do, but the real challenge was maintaining that level of excellence. The day passed in a blur of activity, with Sophia overseeing the kitchen, adjusting menus, and refining dishes. As the evening approached and the restaurant began to fill with customers, Sophia felt the familiar excitement bubbling inside her. It wasn't the same as the event, but it was still her element. The rush of orders, the sizzling of pans, the coordinated chaos, it was what she thrived on. As the night unfolded, the energy in the restaurant matched her own. The dishes were flawless, the service smooth, and the guests left with satisfied smiles. By the time the last table cleared, Sophia stood by the kitchen door, watching the staff clean up, a sense of quiet pride settling over her. Robert walked up to her again, this time with a more thoughtful expression. Asterisk, "You're incredible, you know that?" Asterisk, he said. Asterisk, "What you did last night, and today, it's not easy to do both. But you make it look effortless." Asterisk, she shook her head, a soft laugh escaping her lips. Asterisk, "It's never effortless. But it's worth it." Robert regarded her for a moment, then nodded. I think it's time we talk about your future here. We can't keep you in the back of the kitchen forever. You're a star, and it's time for the world to see that. Sophia paused, looking out at the now empty restaurant. She knew what he was getting at, and she knew it was coming. But she wasn't ready to make that leap yet. Let's keep things simple for now, she replied, her voice steady. I'm happy where I am. I'm doing what I love, and that's enough. Robert didn't press her. He simply nodded and walked away, leaving Sophia standing in the quiet of the restaurant. She wasn't interested in fame or accolades. She was interested in the craft, in the work itself. And for the first time, she realized that was all she ever needed. She wasn't just a quiet woman who had proven herself once. She was someone who had found her place in the world, and that place was in the kitchen, creating, learning, and growing every day. Sophia stood at the counter, the kitchen lights dimming as the evening shift came to a close. She felt the familiar exhaustion in her bones, but there was something different this time. It wasn't just the satisfaction of a successful night, but the realization that she had truly found her place. The staff had grown more comfortable with her leadership, and the restaurant's reputation was steadily rising. But it was more than just business now. It was about the community they had built within the walls of the kitchen. As the final orders were plated and sent out to the dining room, Robert approached her again, this time with a thoughtful expression. Sophia, he said quietly, I know we've talked about the future before, but I want to be clear. You've done more than just fill the position. You've transformed this kitchen. She turned to face him, wiping her hands on her apron. It's not just me, she replied. Everyone here has been a part of this. It's about the team, the work we've put in together. Robert smiled, clearly proud. That's exactly what I'm talking about. And it's time the world sees it. You deserve to be recognized for what you've done, Sophia. You've earned it. For a moment, Sophia was silent, her gaze drifting to the kitchen staff, who were finishing their cleanup. She had never been one to chase recognition. Her focus had always been on the craft, on the food, and on the people who worked alongside her. But Robert's words lingered in her mind. She wasn't sure if she was ready to step into the spotlight, but she couldn't deny that the thought of doing something bigger, of sharing what she had created with a larger audience, was tempting. I'm not sure I want to be in the spotlight, she said softly, looking up at him. I've always been more comfortable here, in the kitchen, with the team. Robert nodded, understanding her hesitation. I get it. But the kitchen is only one part of this. You have the potential to reach so many people, to inspire them. I know it's not easy to put yourself out there, but you have the ability to lead beyond these walls. And I think it's time to take that step. The weight of his words settled over her. She wasn't afraid of the work, the challenge, but the idea of putting herself on display, of having the world see her, was something she hadn't considered before. She had always wanted to stay in the background, creating quietly and confidently. But now, it seemed the time had come to step forward. What are you asking me to do? She asked, her voice steady but uncertain. Robert smiled again, this time with a bit of excitement in his eyes. I'm asking you to be the face of this restaurant, to take on a more public role. We're about to launch a series of events, and I want you to be the one leading them. It's your time to shine, Sophia. Sophia took a deep breath, considering the possibilities. She had always dreamed of creating something that made an impact, something that resonated with others. Maybe this was her chance. Maybe she could still do that without losing the essence of what she loved about cooking. All right, she said finally, looking up at him. Let's do it. Robert grinned, clearly pleased with her decision. I knew you'd be ready. As the conversation ended, Sophia stood alone in the quiet kitchen, her thoughts swirling. She wasn't sure what the future would look like, but for the first time, she felt ready to embrace it. The world was about to see her, and for once, that felt okay. She had always known who she was and what she could do. Now, it was time for everyone else to see it too. Sophia's first event as the face of the restaurant was only a week away, and the anticipation in the air was palpable. She had been preparing for this moment, refining every detail, from the menu to the presentation. But the nerves were there, creeping in slowly as the day approached. It wasn't the cooking that worried her. She knew that part. It was the spotlight, the idea of being front and center, the the face everyone would recognize. She had never craved attention, and now it was being thrust upon her. The kitchen was buzzing with energy as the staff worked on perfecting every dish. Robert had been supportive, giving her the freedom to lead while offering advice when needed. He understood her hesitation and reassured her that she didn't have to change who she was. Still, the thought of all those eyes on her made her stomach flutter. She had always been more comfortable in the kitchen, behind the scenes, where the focus was on the food. Now, with the restaurant's success growing and more people learning about her, she was being asked to step into the light. As the day of the event arrived, the restaurant was filled with excitement. The team was ready, and so was she mostly. She stood backstage, watching the final touches being added to the dining area, her heart beating faster than usual. She had seen the invitations go out to influential food critics, local celebrities, and high-profile business people. This event was going to be big. You ready? Robert's voice broke through her thoughts. She turned to find him standing in the doorway, a reassuring smile on his face. I guess so, she replied, her voice calm but tinged with nervousness. It's just all of this. She gestured around the room, the event space buzzing with people preparing. It's a lot of attention. Robert stepped closer, his expression serious. I get it. But remember, this is just an extension of what you've been doing all along. You've always made this place what it is. Tonight is no different. You're still the chef who creates incredible food, and that's what people are coming for. The rest is just icing on the cake. She nodded, taking in his words. He was right, of course. This wasn't about becoming someone else. It was about doing what she loved, just on a larger scale. The first wave of guests started arriving, their chatter and laughter filling the air. Sophia took a deep breath and stepped out into the dining area, her team moving behind her. The moment she appeared in front of the guests, the buzz in the room shifted. A few people recognized her from the promotional materials, but it wasn't the attention she feared. It was the chance to show them what she was capable of, to make them feel the passion she had for her craft. As the night unfolded, the event became a whirlwind of interaction and service. Sophia floated between tables, offering a few words about each dish, answering questions, and making sure the staff was running smoothly. She didn't mind the attention anymore. It wasn't about her. It was about the experience she was creating for the guests. By the end of the night, the guests were raving about the food, about the atmosphere, about the unique experience Sophia had crafted. Robert found her as the last plates were cleared, his smile wider than ever. You did it, he said. You were incredible tonight. I knew you had it in you. Sophia smiled, her nerves now replaced with a quiet confidence. I guess I did, she replied. It wasn't as hard as I thought. Robert laughed, clapping her on the back. You've got this. You're ready for whatever comes next. As the event wrapped up and the team began to clean up, Sophia stood in the center of the restaurant, taking it all in. She had taken the step she'd been hesitant to make, and now, she felt a sense of pride in herself. She hadn't sought the spotlight, but she had found her place in it, and it felt more natural than she had expected. Sophia stood in the quiet kitchen, the events of the past few weeks still echoing in her mind. The launch had been a success, the guests had been impressed, and the restaurant's reputation was growing. She had stepped into a new role, one that required more from her than she had ever expected. But the more she embraced the challenges, the more she realized how much she had changed. It wasn't about the spotlight anymore. It was about creating something lasting, something meaningful. The kitchen had always been her sanctuary, the place where she felt most at home. But now, she had a greater responsibility, to lead the team, to guide them, and to help the restaurant reach its full potential. Robert had always believed in her, and now she understood why. He had seen something in her that she hadn't recognized in herself. She had the ability to lead, to inspire, and to create. She wasn't just a cook anymore. She was a chef, a leader. The team had come together in a way that felt almost like family. They worked well together, supporting each other, each person bringing their strengths to the table. Sophia had grown into the role of head chef naturally, but it wasn't without its challenges. The pressure of managing the restaurant, balancing creativity with business, was constant. But she had learned to trust herself, to trust her team, and to embrace the lessons that came with each challenge. One evening, as she stood at the counter, preparing a new dish, Robert walked into the kitchen with a broad smile on his face. "I think you're ready for something bigger," he said, his voice filled with admiration. Asterisk, the restaurant is thriving, and I think it's time to expand. We've been offered a partnership, and I want you to be at the forefront of it. Asterisk, Sophia looked up, surprised. She had known this day would come, but she hadn't expected it so soon. A partnership meant more responsibility, more attention, and more pressure. But she wasn't afraid anymore. She had learned to trust herself, and she knew that this was the next step in her journey. Asterisk, what do you need from me? Asterisk, she asked, her voice steady. Robert smiled. Asterisk, I need you to lead. This is your time, Sophia. You've proven yourself, and I know you're ready for this. Asterisk, Sophia paused, her heart racing with excitement and nervousness. This was what she had always wanted, not just to create, but to build something that would last. To lead, to make an impact. I'm ready, she said finally, her voice full of determination. Robert nodded, his smile widening. Asterisk, I knew you would be. Let's make this happen. Asterisk, as the days passed, the plans for the expansion began to take shape. Sophia worked tirelessly, refining the menu, meeting with the team, and preparing for the next phase of the restaurant's journey. The partnership brought new challenges, but it also brought new opportunities to grow, to innovate, and to create something even bigger than before. Sophia wasn't just cooking anymore. She was building a legacy, one dish at a time. Sophia stood in the heart of the new restaurant, her hands folded over her apron as she looked out at the bustling kitchen. It had been several months since the partnership had been finalized, and the expansion was in full swing. The restaurant was now a recognized name in the culinary world, and the team she had helped build was thriving. It had been a whirlwind of hard work, sleepless nights, and tough decisions, but every challenge had only solidified her resolve. The food critics, the guests, even the staff, everyone now knew her name. Yet, the recognition was never the driving force behind her success. It was the love for cooking, the passion for creating something meaningful, and the bond she had formed with the people she worked with. As the restaurant continued to grow, so did Sophia. She was no longer just a chef. She had become a mentor, a leader, and a symbol of what hard work and dedication could achieve. Robert had been right all along. She was ready for more. She had learned to embrace the responsibility, to step up when needed, and to trust in her ability to lead. But it wasn't always easy. There were days when the weight of it all felt too much, when the pressure of running a successful restaurant seemed like it would crush her. But those were the moments when she found herself leaning on the team she had built. They had become more than just co-workers. They were her family. They were the ones who had stood by her from the beginning, when she was still learning how to navigate the world of high-end cuisine. Together, they had created something special, something that wasn't just about food, but about community, about bringing people together over a shared experience. The success of the restaurant had led to new opportunities. Invitations to food festivals, collaborations with renowned chefs, and offers to open new locations. Sophia was being approached from all sides. Yet, she found herself questioning what she truly wanted. It wasn't the fame or the accolades that drove her anymore. It was the desire to continue creating, to push the boundaries of what was possible in the kitchen. As she stood there, watching the team prepare for the evening service, Sophia realized that she didn't need to be at the center of it all. What mattered was the work, the food, and the people who believed in the same vision. The restaurant was no longer just her dream. It had become a shared dream, a place where everyone had a stake in its success. And as the night began, with the kitchen coming to life in the familiar rhythm of preparation and service, Sophia knew that she had found exactly where she was meant to be. She didn't need the spotlight anymore. She had found her purpose in the kitchen, in the people she worked with, and in the legacy they were building together.